Welcome to episode 299 of Sports Geek. On this week's episode, I chat sponsorship and activations with the Philadelphia Eagles, Catherine Carlson.
Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host who is loving the connections via Lunch Club, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Yes, my name is Sean Callanan. I am loving the connections and the meetings I'm having via Lunch Club. It's something that I've been doing almost for a year now. It's effectively virtual networking where it matches you up with different people from around the world, and I'm really enjoying it. If you would like, it's invite only, and it's allows people to connect professionally. If you want to check out Lunch Club, please just reach out to me, slide into my DMs. I will send you an invite. But it's been really beneficial. I'm really loving meeting with different people across sports, technology, video games, gaming, esports. It's been really good. So, check out Lunch Club, a growing professional networking solution, I believe is probably the best way to describe it. Otherwise, you can find me at Sports Geek HQ. Most things, sportsgeekhq.com is where you can find all things Sports Geek. You can find the podcast. You can find our Sports Geek news email that goes out weekly. You can register for our Zoom calls. And you can also find the links to the Sports Geek Amplify series there. But if not, you can always try the old-fashioned way. Email Sean at sportsgeekhq.com or via socials at Sean Callanan on most platforms. One of the things I did mention there was our Sports Biz Zoom calls. We ran them twice weekly for most of 2020 as most people were working from home or in an extended lockdown as we were in Melbourne. They are now hosted monthly. So they are something we really do want you to book in for. Our next one is our April Sports Biz Zoom call is scheduled for April 13, 14, depending on what part of the world you're in. And we're going to look at the world of sponsorship valuations and rate cards. It was I think we did it once or twice last year on the Zoom calls, and it was a really hot topic. So we're going to revisit that, look at the world of sponsorship and valuations and digital valuations and the like, which was discussed in the Sports Geek Amplify series with Amir Zanosi at Zoom. So I might see if Amir can join us for that Zoom call. But if you're in the world of digital or sponsorship, please come along. Let's join the chat. Let's share and learn together. You can do that at sportsgeekhq.com/Zoom calls. Before I get into my chat with Catherine Carlson from the Philadelphia Eagles, just a quick one to check in to see how can I help you. Is there a project or some consulting work that I can do that will help you reach your goals? That's my goal. My goal is for digital to be the number one source of revenue for sports by 2030. And I'm going to do that by helping people maximize what they're doing in digital. So if you need some education and training to help your digital team either get up to speed or define a strategy or build out a new content series, that's exactly what I've been doing for the last 10 to 12 years. So please, reach out. We've got our Pick My Brain sessions available. If you go to sportsgeekhq.com/pickmybrain, that's a 2-hour deep dive with you and your team on what you're trying to do, whether it's digital, ticketing, sponsorship, those kind of things. Please reach out on any of those particular topics. Like I said, I always love working with podcast listeners. So guess what? You're one of them. If I can help you, please reach out. Now, here is my chat with Catherine Carlson from the Philadelphia Eagles. Very happy to welcome the Senior Vice President of Revenue and Strategy for the Philadelphia Eagles, Catherine Carlson. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Sean.
No problems. This has been a long time in the making. If you checked my LinkedIn inbox with Catherine, I think it's been 2 or 3 years that we've been going backwards and forwards, but persistence is a virtue, and glad to actually get you on for a chat.
I know. I've been listening to your podcast for the last several years on my long commute into the office, so I'm excited to be with you finally today.
No, exactly. So first of all, as I normally open up, how did you get your start in the world of sport?
Well, I can tell you my career path to getting me to the NFL and the Philadelphia Eagles has probably been a little bit untraditional. You can tell that I originally from Australia. So started off my sports journey around 30 years ago now, which is crazy to think. But back in the early 90s, so I'm dating myself here, sports management was pretty much a brand new degree. And I was based in Melbourne, Australia. And, we were part of the first group to ever go through a business degree with a sports management major. And so really at the time, and I didn't realize it, but it was kind of groundbreaking. And, I feel like it was the beginning of a new level of professionalism in sports and, bringing some young up-and-coming, business-savvy, hungry managers into the industry. And so it was exciting to be part of that first group. So,
and so that was the early Deakin sports management stuff, wasn't it?
Yep, it was actually Victoria College when I first started, and then it transferred over to Deakin University. So I actually started my first job in sports was actually in rugby league. So kind of ironic that I started with one code of football and now I'm in the NFL, but I actually started in the Victorian Rugby League, and that sort of predates anything prior to the Melbourne Storm coming into Victoria. But really, the purpose of the organisation was really to grow rugby league in Melbourne, which, as you know, is a stronghold of Aussie rules. And so I started off working in a small little office in Melbourne, and with the goal of growing the sport there. I was the only woman in the entire organisation, so it was always interesting to hear the commentary. Well, what does a woman know about rugby league? And so when I was there in my first 2 years, I actually went out and got a coaching certification. So it was, so I'm actually a qualified rugby league coach. So you probably wouldn't know that looking at me, but I am definitely a rugby league coach back in the day. So that was kind of a fun start to my career.
And so, again, like you said, in those early days, it was a matter of like sports administration was still relatively new. At least in this part of the world, it was moving from that volunteerism to more professionalism, and the industry was starting to build out. From the Victorian Rugby League, you ended up working in hockey as well.
Yeah, I actually worked for the Australian Hockey Association. So I think it's known as Hockey Australia now, but on the men's side. And my role was really as the program manager working with the National Hockey League and getting that up and running and preparing the men's team for the Atlanta Olympics in 96. So I spent a good 3 years of my career there. I grew up playing hockey, so it was kind of a passion point for me. But after 3 years, I kept looking at the U.S. I had a passion. I kept looking to the U.S. as a leader in sports, and I think professional sports was in the U.S. was very intriguing to me. Big TV audiences, huge broadcast rights, sponsorship deals, entertainment, big personalities, and so I kind of took a leap of faith and decided I'm packing up my bags. So I actually packed up 2 suitcases, jumped on a plane and headed to the US and in pursuit of a master's degree in sports major. So that's actually how I ended up in the US. And now I've been in the States for about 23 years.
Yeah. So one, the education piece and understanding the US market. Were there learnings, knowing, I'm very much in the Australian market and knowing how it works there. But you're right, the big bright lights, the big media deals, just the scale that is in US sport, coming out of doing the masters. How did you then get into the US sports scene?
Well, in completing my master's degree, we had an opportunity to do an internship, which is very much the American way after a master's degree. And so I actually was very fortunate to get an opportunity to work at Disney's Wide World of Sports. down in Orlando. And a lot of you know it recently as the NBA's bubble during the COVID time. Yep. So I actually spent my first, I spent a year as an intern there, just learning the ropes and just learning the incredible machine that Disney is, and learning the importance of customer service. Just world class. They're world class, top notch in everything they do, including running a sports facility. So for me, having that opportunity to work for such a big brand such as Disney and get involved with a project that Disney hadn't got into, so they're really known for their theme parks and movies, but they jumped into the sports world. And so I worked in the Disney's Wide World of Sports, which is now known as ESPN Wide World of Sports, for about 6 years, and really learned a lot about the company. Really, the Wide World of Sports was designed as almost like a sports commission in driving sporting events to Disney, and then that was the lead into staying at the Disney hotels and purchasing theme park tickets while they were there with their sports teams. So it was really interesting to see how the business model started and it progressed over the years. I mean, at the end of the day, Disney was creating sports events for young youth to come down. And all of a sudden, it's really cool as a teenager to go to Disney with your friends and your sports members when you had time off in between your games and your various sports tournaments. So it was such an interesting model to learn about and see the way Disney operates their business. I mean, it is quite a fascinating company to work for, and it makes me who I am in terms of customer service is so important, attention to detail. There's so many things that Disney does well, and it's a really good grounding, as you move into the professional sports realm. It was just certainly a good grounding or foundation to move into professional sports. So,
one of my favorite books of the pandemic was Bob Iger's book, Ride of a Lifetime, sort of talking about, the Disney way and all the things that happen there. So it would have been a fascinating space and would have given you a lot of touch points to different parts of the world of sport, being it's such a, we do know it was the hub for COVID in the NBA, but also at that time, a lot of sports teams were going through there, a lot of young talent was going through there. So it would have been a great networking opportunity. Was that something because of the proximity that led to you working at the Magic?
Well, I actually, after about 6 years working at the Wide World of Sports, I had an opportunity. So I really loved the concept of deal making. So business development, sponsorship, it was something that I always had wanted to do. And primarily up until that point, I'd been more on the event management side. And so I had an opportunity to actually take a bit of a risk. And sometimes this happens in your career where you deviate. And I had an opportunity to work as a business development manager at one of the theme parks. So at Epcot, so if any of you are familiar with Disney, Epcot's one of the 4 theme parks. So my office was actually above one of the rides. So that's quite an interesting story in itself. But my role in business development was to build corporate alliances. So work on sponsorship deals for all the theme parks. And so that great opportunity led me to wheeling and dealing, and with the power of the Disney brand behind you, creating all these incredibly integrated experiential sponsorship experiences within the theme park environment. So if you think about it, I'm sure you've heard about Walt Disney World Imagineers. They're the creative brains behind a lot of the different rides and themed lands that you see at Disney. I had an opportunity to work hand in hand on multiple occasions with the Imagineers in creating sponsored experiences within the theme park. And so that really led to a chance meeting with an executive from the Orlando Magic. And he said, we're opening a new arena, now called the Amway Center. And he said, we want to approach sponsorship differently. And so we think your Disney experience, and how do we transform the way we've been doing partnerships from a more, put signs up and call it sponsorship to making it more integrated and experiential. And we'd love to see what you can do from a Disney standpoint and bring that little Disney magic to the Magic. So that's how I started my jump into professional sports. So that led to 11 seasons with the Magic, actually. So it was quite a ride.
Yeah, I mean, it is quite the segue. I mean, that was one of the things I wanted to ask. I guess the selling sponsorship on the Disney, like, you were effectively really early on, like, what is now known as, hey, we've got to do experience. The stadium experience is far different. You know, if we're looking back 15 years ago into the last 10 years that sports are now doing that. Obviously, that was a good grounding because that's what you were designing with Disney, and that's where you went in, you know, with the Magic and Amway Centre to be able to say, yes, we're not just taking your logo, or we're not just parking the car at that gate and letting people walk past it. That more creating an experience, is they the kind of deals that you like getting your teeth into?
Yeah, I think it opening a new stadium or an arena, you have a clean blank canvas. And so you can recreate and create new experiences. And it was fun being part of the process, because I think we ended up building out 22 different themed sponsored experiences within the building in the course of about 6 months. So it was, incredibly, probably the craziest time in my career doing that. But like you just use the example of, putting a car out the front of the stadium or the arena. So we actually, when we were creating the Amway Centre, we actually created an indoor deck, and we actually sold it to Kia Motors. And so instead of the traditional, let's put the car outside as the guests are coming in, we actually had a crane, and I'll never forget this day. We had a crane lift up a Kia SUV, drop it down into a deck that was visible from the inner bowl. I think it missed the LED signage by about 6 inches, and I pretty much almost had a heart attack when we were installing it. But we created an experience. And so Kia used it to invite their guests or test drive a Kia and come and experience our Magic game from the deck inside the stadium. And so they really leveraged it as part of overall activation. So that's just an example of, creating a theme. It sounds so commonplace now, but, 12, 13 years ago, that was a very unusual thing to see in an indoor arena. So it was kind of groundbreaking, but it was bringing that Disney magic and trying to bring an experience into the stadium versus just putting a sign. I mean, we put a Kia sign, don't get me wrong, but then we added and made it additive and made it part of an overall promotion and really drove value for the brand. So it's still there to this day. So did something right.
So working in the NBA environment, spoken to a lot of people in the NBA, either in the digital or like yourself in that corporate partnerships activation space. What were some of the, I guess, benefits and lessons of like working with and leaning on and your colleagues at other NBA teams in, you sharing something that you've done with Kia and then talking to different teams? Was there a lot of lessons and learning and I guess rising tides lift all boats from an NBA team level, working with different teams?
Yeah, the one thing and it's similar in the NFL now, but working with Teambo, team business operations, team marketing and business operations, I love the fact that we did share a lot of best practices. It was really, you compete in certain platforms, but you also are comrades there's a camaraderie between the teams as well. And so I love the fact that the NBA, we would have league meetings every year and ongoing best practices and share different ideas amongst the teams. There was a bit of competition as well. So we would have an annual sponsor activation award of the year, and it was the coveted trophy that you wanted to win. I think we won it the first year it came out, and then we lifted the bar so high and it became a real competition between the teams to sort of one up each other. But it was certainly, I like that sharing across teams. I think the NBA does it exceptionally well. And there's a similar structure now in the NFL called Club Business Development, where we do a lot of best practice sharing that, it allows us to be better as a league, be better as an individual team. So I think it's a best practice across all professional sports, quite frankly.
And now you're at the Philadelphia Eagles, with the title, as I said before, Senior Vice President, Revenue and Strategy. That's a very a wide remit from a title point of view. What does revenue and strategy remit look like at the Eagles?
Well, predominantly, if you use the word sales, I head up the sales functions of the organization. And really, at the Eagles, we're in a very unique situation where we're 100% sold out with our season ticket members. In fact, we have a significant waiting list of 20,000 plus wanting to be a season ticket member. So I don't spend too much time on selling tickets because we renew our tickets at around 99.8% every year. So my primary focus from a revenue or sales standpoint is on our premium customers. So our suite holders, our field seats, anything that's contractual. We're in the process of creating a new VIP lounge right now, and we're in a sales campaign. It's the Foxbet Lounge. And then, but more importantly also is the corporate side. So sponsorship, there's a very huge upside on the sponsorship side. You're not limited by inventory. You can continue to create innovative platforms for your partners. So I think that's the most exciting part of my job in terms of growth. I think there's tremendous growth. The one thing that I learned about coming from a NBA team in the 17th largest media market to the 4th largest in Philadelphia, the scale of everything we do was significantly larger. I always tell the story is my first game at the Eagles, our president said, come and let me show you what it means to be an Eagle fan. I want to demonstrate the passion of our fans and why this is so important to what you do every day. So on the opening game, my first ever Eagles game, he said, come with me and we're going to walk around tailgating. And so basically our game starts at 1 p.m. Fans start arriving at 6 a.m. And they have the most elaborate tailgating setups with RVs, full cooking facilities. I mean, you've never seen anything like this until you've gone to an Eagles tailgate. Well, I can tell you, we've had 70,000 people in our stadium. I would hazard to guess there's 80 to 90,000 people tailgating. So some people don't even actually come into the game. They just hang around for the tailgating. And so I was just blown away with the passion, the arriving at 6. It's such a tradition with the Eagles. But what was even more impressive is just like people tell you Eagles fans are passionate, but until you witness it yourself, I mean, our Eagles fans bleed green. Like it's without a doubt. And on Sunday, it's Eagles Sunday. Don't plan anything on a Sunday because that's an Eagles game. And when you look at things like TV ratings, our average game is, in the 30 plus from a Nielsen perspective. But from a household share, some of our biggest games, we have 60 household share, which if anyone is not familiar with that, what that means is 60% of people have got their TV turned on, are watching an Eagles game in our markets. So it's just incredibly strong, the brand and what it means to people in Philadelphia. But also what we've found is that where we really have a lot of interest from a corporate standpoint is not just the Philadelphia footprint, but across the whole US. Our social media footprint is over 9 million. Actually, it's almost 10. It's approaching 10 million fans through our social channels. And so we have this whole marketing concept called #Eagles Everywhere, because what we've realized is Eagles move around the country, and actually, the Eagles are rated number 1 in terms of travel equity. So our fans travel to away games. In some instances, we'll show up on the road, and there are thousands and thousands and thousands of Eagles fans at the game. And in some locations, it sounds like an Eagles home game because so many of the fans travel. So it's just such a incredible. So having that as your foundation to go out and sell corporate partnerships is pretty powerful. And it really allows us to do some fun activations, some fun programs and marketing platforms with our partners, both on social, both in stadium, both in market. So it's a lot of fun. I get to do fun things every day with a very strong brand here in Philadelphia.
I mean, and that fan experience and what the fans have created, like there's so many sports that are trying to, Disney-fy, and try to create this experience and manage it and everything, but you've already got that, and it's been built organically from the fans, like that tailgating experience and the passion that the fans have that they're going to show up. Like that's amazing. Like you said, the opposite of a blank canvas, but it's like this rich canvas that you can tap into from a partnerships point of view, to bring your partners to that experience. But then also you've got that digital piece that is, that more and more, 2020 has probably made a lot of sports realize all these activations that we normally would do at a tailgate and a stadium that have been limited with limited fan numbers. How did you make some changes last year with the restrictions around COVID? Was there a pivot with a lot of the things you were doing to digital and with your partners?
Yeah, I mean, look, 2020 is the year of learning. I think, when you're working with partners, I think we always contemplated at some point there might be a cancelled game because of weather, or, maybe there's a lockout because of, labor disputes. But I don't think anyone in our industry would have ever contemplated playing games in a stadium without fans. So that was just the most incredibly challenging, but, and managing a team and through this virtually. So, I have a team of 30, and so having to figure out, okay, what's our game plan? And quite frankly, when we started off 1 year ago in March, our game plan continually evolved. So we had to have such a level of flexibility and, communicating transparency with our clients to sort of navigate through this. But in terms of how do we pivot to more digital assets, it was actually really interesting. The NFL created some new assets for us that we were able to monetize and help our partners out from a make good perspective. So you probably saw, tarps, covering the lower 8 rows of the stadiums, and that certainly provided, branding value. But we really looked at a lot of digital assets as well, and bringing, events are such a big part of the Eagles, world. And so pulling those events into digital versions of the events, and I know we're probably all zoomed out, but early on in the pandemic, we did some unique things. So I'll give you an example. So we do training camp every year at our training facility, NovaCare Complex. And that's really a really hot hospitality ticket for our clients, because they get to come to training camp, see all the new players, the new free agents, see our favorite players up close and personal. You can literally stand on the sideline and watch practice, and there's quite a hospitality.
Yep.
And as part of that, we would always have the players come and meet our clients. They would bring their clients, and so it was just a really good premium hospitality opportunity. So this year, we actually kept the tents there, but we put in laptops in each of the tents, and after practice, we would have the players come up and do a private meet and greet with our clients that would have been there. So in actual fact, they got to ask questions with the players and interact with the players, and that was pretty special for our clients, because they probably got more of an interaction with the players virtually than they would have, in a regular training camp event. And so one of the other things that we did was we do a lot of dinners and, bring all your corporate partners in. And what we did is we actually hired a company, you're probably familiar with them, they're called Tao. So Tao runs a lot of the top restaurants and nightclubs in major cities all around the US. And so we actually partnered with their executive chef. And so we did a virtual dinner. So we sent all the ingredients to the client's house. We sent a nice bowl of wine for our wine partner. And the RSVPs and the attendance rate, we got more executives and their family members participate this than if we were doing it in person. And we have clients that are national clients that live all around the country. They all jumped in, and it was something to do, and it was an hour interactive experience. We had the chef, and it was just fun seeing what their kitchen looked like, how they were, they bring in their family members, their dog if you wanted to. It was just, it was actually a really interesting touch point that was a great story in a way we were able to change some of the things that we did. And I love that. Like, I had some executives attend that would usually never attend an event. And so for us, it was kind of a fun way to do it digitally. But outside of sort of,
do you think some of those will stick post 2021 and like be, because like, again, an Eagles executive, or an Eagles fan that's a C-level executive that's in LA, they can't come to an event in Philly. Like, you're going to be still hosting those, up close, hard knock style training camp events. Do you think there will be a mix of, again, whether we all still want to be on Zoom in 2 years' time, it remains to be seen. But do you think some of those events will stay to engage that, out of your location, to engage that wider fan base?
Yeah, I think some of the learnings coming out of COVID is that sometimes virtual events are actually more inclusive. And, sometimes you're constrained in a physical sense when you have an event, an in-person event, you're constrained by where you host it. What we found was that there are some great opportunities, and I think they'll continue to stay on a go-forward basis, because they actually lend themselves to being virtual and actually reduce some of your costs. And I actually think it's here to stay. We're looking at a new B2B platform. We're calling it the Eagles Business League, and basically we're creating a series of different types of events, everything from women's focused events to networking type events to sort of a lunch and learn huddle type events. And so we're creating it under this banner, and now we're starting it off virtually because we think it is just a great way to continually engage our partners. They don't have to live in Philadelphia. We can engage them across the entire country, which I think it's here to stay for sure. Definitely.
So one of the things when you see someone that has revenue and strategy in their title is the push to find like non-traditional or new avenues of revenue. How do you balance hey, I've got this great fan base, there's more work and more mining to be done with this main fan base, and we could, potentially get more money out of certain segments, that kind of thing too. We do want to do, play in these new areas. How do you balance that with your role?
Yeah, look, I think my job is to uncover new revenue opportunities. And I think some of the most interesting examples this year or in the past, probably 18 months has been in the legalized sports gambling category. Relatively new to the US, but that's just been an interesting one to navigate and figure out what's the best strategy on moving forward. And I will tell you, the league, the NFL really set up a gambling policy for us. So that was kind of our guardrails, if you will. And it really had four key pieces or objectives. And that's sort of my guiding principles and how we create the strategy and opportunities. And the first one, which is really important, no matter what part of the world you're in, but protecting the integrity of the game. So we know that that's an important piece to it. Maintaining the NFL and the team's brand reputation. So that's important. Driving fan engagement, because what we've realized is, starting with fantasy sports and now in the legalized gambling space, is it definitely drives fan engagement. And then the final one, which is where I come into play, is growing those commercial opportunities. So for us, it was interesting. If you'd asked me my strategy 2 years ago, I would have said, this is my strategy, Sean. There's three distinct parts of the gambling space. There's bricks and mortar. So in other words, the land-based casinos. I would tell you there's fantasy sports, which was growing and growing immensely in the US. And then the legalized sports gambling piece. But now, 2 years later, I would say all three have merged together. So every piece of that strategy, they all, like fantasy sports is now into legalized sports gambling. Casinos have online gambling or online casinos, and legalized sports betting. Some are standalone, but a lot have partnerships with all of those three. And so that consolidation really made you think, okay, what's the best strategy for us moving forward? So really, we actually have three different partners in the space. We made a strategic decision to be non-exclusive, and I think that's really worked for us. Each of our three partners, so we have Unibet, Foxbet, and DraftKings, but each of them have such distinct different objectives, and so we've been able to really create and manage the share of voice, so that there's still a lot of value there. They're not all identical. They all have very different needs and objectives in partnering with a property such as the Eagles. So yeah, I mean that's the fun part of my job is navigating and figuring out how do we best work in this space and drive revenue, but at the same time we're providing tremendous value back to our clients. So we're having a lot of fun with it. During COVID we built an entire new lounge, a VIP lounge, about 4,000 square feet in the base of the event level of a Lincoln Financial Field. It's called the Foxbet Lounge, and we're launching it this season. So just things like that was, things that we were doing in COVID, we were still constructing a space, which is kind of incredible when you think about everything that was going on. So yeah, this is a space that I think will continue to grow. I definitely think the NFL will continue to maybe loosen the restrictions a little bit, or it's a cautious approach, I understand, but I do think there's some opportunities to continue to grow in this space.
And because it is so early on, do you sort of look back home, to the Australian market that's a very mature sports gambling, legalized betting market? There's different players in there. They've been integrated with sports leagues and teams, for many, many years. You're sort of keeping an eye on, because they've sort of evolved and got to a different level, to sort of say, well, what's happening in Australia? Is that something that we can adapt with our partners, with the Eagles, to sort of say, like, what this might be phase one, effectively, if it's like the Marvel universe, what does phase 4 look like? Are you trying to sort of look ahead to say, oh, that looks interesting, the AFL are doing that, or that's what, NRL clubs are doing, to sort of see potentially where you might be going?
Absolutely. And what I find is that a lot of my contacts in the industry that I've met most of the legalized sports gambling players here that are available in the US. I think I find a lot of executives within those groups are not originally from the US. So I think these brands are being really smart and bringing in executives that have built it up or have experienced it, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in Australia, various different countries. So it's really, it's been interesting to see that they're bringing in experts, and therefore we're learning a lot from them and how we can, like, where does this go from now? That's the exciting part. Look, I don't see our venues having retail locations at stadiums yet. I think that's definitely a phase 3 or 4. But I suspect that may be part of our roadmap in the future. If I had a crystal ball, it may get there. It's just what's the timeline for that? I'll be curious to see how that evolves.
Yeah, it is funny. It's like also here in Australia, we have ads with Allen Iverson and Shaquille O'Neal doing gambling ads in the Australian market, which is, quite strange, because it's effectively like, seeing Ronaldo do an ad in Japan that only gets shown in Japan. But it's just that mature here in this market. So it's going to be interesting to see. And there has definitely been a brain drain of people that work in the gambling space, either on the bookmaker side or also the integrity side, which is a really big part of it. There's a lot of integrity people in the integrity side in Australia that have done a lot of work to protect the game. That I think NFL, NBA will be tapping on to make sure that stays ahead. The other non-traditional part, which you guys have from an Eagles point of view, dove into is the esports. What's been part of what you're doing in the esports space with the Eagles?
Yeah, that's been an interesting space, and I know you're more of an expert on this space than I am. But obviously we have the EA Madden NFL games, so that's we have an actual title that is relevant to our games. Yep. So that's a good starting point. So the Eagles we've dipped our toe into it. I would tell you, the NFL actually has a club championship, so an EA Madden club championship. So each team plays in a tournament. You qualify, and we have players that represent the Eagles in a tournament. This past year it was virtual, so you get about 150 or so, 160 participants. So we feel like esports is obviously growing, and it really is a great new fan funnel for us. So if you think about it, we want to continue to build our fan base. So we recognize that our fan base continues to age, and what we want to do is bring in some of these younger fans, so that 13 to 24-year-olds, because ultimately in 10 years they'll be buying the season tickets, not their parents. And so really want to get them involved. So we actually recently partnered with a company called Esports Entertainment Group. So they have multiple components of their company. So they have where we are involved in the Eagles is on the online tournament provider. So we're not an expert in running tournaments, esports tournaments. So we actually are working with them this year to host 2 Madden tournaments for us, but have multiple weeks of qualifying events. So now we're going, and they're not necessarily professional players, like more that you're involved with, but it's the average Joe getting involved and participating and qualifying in these events. So it opens up our the ability to target thousands and thousands of potential gamers. And so we're doing it. So we're following the league season. So we're going to have a tournament run by EG, a Madden tournament at the start of the season, and then sort of midway through the season. But the way we eagle-eyes it is that we're going to actually work with 2 of our players, and we're going to assign them as ambassadors. And so, think about it, the average rookie and younger players, they're all in their early 20s. So we don't think it's going to be too hard to select 2 of our players to become a tournament ambassador for us. And so we're going to have some fun with that, do some content, get it out through their social handles. We're going to have them attend so we'll do qualifying tournaments online, but ultimately have the tournament, the finals, if you will, at our stadium. We're going to have player involvement there. Cool once in a lifetime Eagles prizes. So we're really adding an Eagles flavor. We're really pushing that younger demographic, which I think ultimately is a smart strategy for us moving forward in terms of bringing in more kids into the funnel. Only 1% of all Eagles fans actually get to come to a game. So what we need to do is continue to engage our fans. And we think, through EA Madden, doing tournaments online, we're getting that younger generation of fan to get involved with us. And so that's our strategy. And it's kind of it's been fun so far. We're in the process of, putting the tournaments together. But one thing, in our research, we found that the number of Eagles fans that are playing Madden has grown exponentially. Yep. The numbers would blow your mind. And so we know there's a ton of, and we can see if they're playing at Lincoln Financial Field or they're playing an Eagles team as part of the, who are they, who are they recruiting for their team? They know the player ratings. It's really interesting to see how the younger generation are engaging with our brand. And if it's through gaming, that's great. We want to try new avenues to bring in new fans. So I think this is, you know this more than I do.
I mean, that's the thing. I think it's a real opportunity to see gaming as a platform, not as a destination. And you're right. I think, Eagles fans, those same ones that are tailgating, when they're going home and they're pulling out their PlayStation or Xbox, they're playing Madden. They're playing as the Eagles. They're not going and playing as someone else. And so that's how young fans are learning the plays. They play the game and then they watch the game on Sunday and they see the same play.
I live it vicariously through my 14-year-old. And so when we trade a player at the Eagles, he tells me what their player rating is and if that's a good move. So he's a wannabe GM. But if you think about it, he's engaged with our brand and he cares who's traded, who's on the team, how that impacts the game. And so I think that's just it. We're onto something that really I think will help with the future of building our fan base at that younger age group.
And I think from an NFL point of view, it does become another channel. Like I think the FIFA game is so big now. You talk to Premier League teams or MLS teams, and they actually do their jersey logo reveals like in the game, and get and they go back to their partners and say, look at all the exposure you got inside the game. So it becomes another channel. Like it's great that you can rattle off your Nielsen numbers and your 60 share, and then you say, oh, by the way, here's the bonus stuff that's happening in a video game over here. So it's just going to be on the up and up as the NFL expands the Madden universe and all the different titles that are and activations around it. It becomes another place that you can play and potentially do some deals in the future.
Absolutely. Especially it's just a coveted, demographic that there's definitely brands out there that are very interested in that. And we want to be able to deliver that demographic to our partners too.
And it does make it easier when every player that's coming into your locker room year on year, that's what they've grown up. That's how they've grown up playing the game. So you're right. You won't have a problem finding a rookie or a player to say, hey, yeah, I play Madden all the time, because, real life is a little bit like ballers, right? Well, they are still playing games all the time.
That's right. Well, it was funny. Last year, we had a bunch of players. We had some fun with some of our social media content. We had the players kind of reveal what their player rating was on the Madden game. Yep. And they were either disappointed, like, why am I only rated an 80? I should be like a 93. And so, but our fans ate it up. They loved that content and, loved even seeing the players see their own ratings revealed. So we definitely identified this as a huge opportunity for the future.
Yeah, we're probably a few years away from a coach talking about the player rating and agreeing with the player rating and why they need to work more in the off-season. But we're not far away. Like, I think in 10 years, that will be the vernacular that the coaches will say, sorry, I agree with the guys at Madden. You need to work on your evasion skills. That's what you got to do in training camp. But we're probably not that far away.
I tend to agree with you there.
So I did want to mention, it sort of brings back full circle to your early days of the Victorian Rugby League. The Eagles were profiled in the Wall Street Journal for being, for the female leadership at the C level. What are the Eagles doing right, having women in leadership positions?
Well, that's a really interesting question. When I was considering the opportunity at the Eagles, I did my homework. And one thing that was really genuinely surprising was the number of women executives on the executive team. And so it was interesting because my first leadership meeting, I walk into the boardroom and I look around the room and 4 out of 6 of our leadership team are women. And I don't know if there's another NFL team out there that has that, can brag about that. But it's truly, and it's not just a seat at the table. I have a seat at the table driving the strategy for our franchise. And that is a pretty, incredible thing. And I'm proud of that and hopefully, leading the way for other women and providing them with opportunities in the future. But I'm very fortunate. Our president is just very open. He wants to, hire the best talent. And it just, in this case, it happens to be, we have some women in significant roles at our organization. And I love that. I think it's was one of the attractive factors of coming to the Eagles. And, I'll shout it from the rooftops and brag about it, because I do think it's unusual, but I think it's a great business model, having diversity of thought, different thoughts and opinions, driving the strategy for the team. So I love it. I think it's a great talking point, and we'll continue to stay at the Eagles and continue to pave the way for other women in the industry.
Definitely, and you're completely right there. The just having more voices at the table, that diverse opinion. Half the audience, of NFL games is women. So all the stats are there, but it's still something that needs improving. But you definitely, when you do get examples like the Eagles, you do want to shout it from the rooftops.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
What's advice, before we wrap up, what advice do you have for people trying to break into the industry, or people who might be listening in Australia that say, how has Catherine ended up, working in one of the premier NFL teams, starting from Australia? Like, there's a lot of people that want to break into the scene, either from other locations. What is some of your advice to get into the world of sports?
Yeah, I think be a student of the industry. I probably the best example is my first job was in rugby league. I didn't know enough about the game. I went out and became a qualified rugby league coach. So you don't always have to be in the sport that you know everything about. And your first job might not be your ideal job. But I always tell people that want to get into the sports industry, it's competitive. And so you have to, how do you differentiate yourself? And it's those free internships, it's working opportunities, it's networking when you don't have to network. I am the biggest proponent of LinkedIn. I can't speak highly enough about LinkedIn in terms of networking. I will share this, that my opportunity with the Eagles came through a LinkedIn message from a recruiter. So, I think it's so important. You have to start building your brand, and anyone can do that. You're building your brand, commenting, being engaged in our industry, being part of podcasts, starting your own podcast. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can differentiate yourself. But what I look for, in that entry-level role is I really look for a team player, number one, because I can teach skills. I can't teach teamwork. I think my biggest request of someone jumping into the industry is be intellectually curious. Ask, why? Why not? I want you to sort of challenge the status quo, look at the industry, where are there opportunities, let's not do it because that's the way it's always been done. So for me, you can add value if you open your mind to innovative and creative things, and why not? You can even borrow stuff from other industries and bring it to the sports industry. So I just think, and persistence, you're not going to be the CEO in the first year out of college. It's taken me a few years to get to my role, but never give up, and don't be afraid to, your career progression is not necessarily up in a linear, like a ladder. Sometimes you go sideways. And maybe in my case, I actually left the sports industry for 5 years to work in a theme park. And that provided me with other opportunities. So be a student of the industry is what it comes down to. Be a student, be positive, be a student of the industry, and be a team player.
Terrific advice. It's one of the reasons I ask people where they start, because they look, hey, you're at the NFL, but it's like, no, where did you get your start? Where did you build your base of knowledge, skills? The always be networking is a great one. Again, we've had a lot of people that have lost their jobs in the past, 12 to 18 months. But even before that, when you see someone getting back on LinkedIn because they're looking for a job. That's not when you're meant to be networking. Network when you're meeting everybody, when you're meeting everyone through your current job. And then the other piece of is once you're in, keep doing that and helping the people get in, because I think that like networking karma, like just that you just keep building up credits. As the years go on.
Building a network with your peers across the teams, across leagues has just been so invaluable, because if you come up against a challenge, you can reach out to your peers, or how did you handle this, or how are you handling this? Yep. And so that camaraderie and team feeling, to be able to reach out to your peers in the across the industry is just invaluable. Just totally invaluable.
Terrific. Well, Catherine, I want to finish off with the Sports Geek closing 5. Do you remember the first sports event you ever attended?
I think it was a cricket match at the MCG, but I can't recall which. I think it was a cricket match at the MCG. I should know that. I'm on
cricket match at the MCG. Probably an Ashes.
It's pretty lame that I'm not giving you a great answer there, because I'm on the board of USA Cricket. So that's pretty lame. But yes, it was a cricket match.
Let's just say it was an Ashes test.
Boxing Day.
Australia versus England. We'll give it a bit of history.
There you go.
Yeah, we'll go with that. But you would have been to a lot of sports events in your time, and the food options in sport have changed vastly over the past 25 years. Do you have a go-to food when you go to a sports event, or do you have a favorite food memory at a sports event?
Yeah, I used to. I think I liked. I don't know. It sounds lame, but I really liked the non-traditional, like hot dogs and burgers are just, or 4 and 20 pies were just not my thing. So I like trying different things. So for me, I'm a sushi person. Like, I don't know why, but if I get into it and have some sushi, and I don't know why, but that's what I like, my jam. So I'm not.
That's
not
right. Hopefully, you've still got a job, because you didn't say Philly cheesesteak, but mate, I thought you might have been contractually obliged to say that, but that's fine. What's the first app that you open in the morning?
Probably Facebook. I'm showing my age. But I open about 4 at once.
Okay.
So I open Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. They're my 4 in the morning.
Yeah. Is there someone that you follow either online or an author you read that you suggest the podcast listeners should follow, and why?
On the reading side, I just sent out to my sales team. I think the author is Weinberg. It's Sales Management Simplified, and then New Sales Simplified. It's just a really good refresher of new business development. I've enjoyed sharing that with my team, and it's just sort of a good refresher course. So that's a good one there. And then I probably annoy the hell out of my husband. I have about 500 different notifications on Twitter, so I try and keep on. So I have so many that I follow on Twitter, just because I want to be on the cutting edge of different breaking news and industry news. So everything from Darren Ravel to pro football talk, because I want to know what the trades are going on. Anything in that genre, sports business genre, is what I follow on Twitter and different channels.
Terrific. Well, you've probably spoiled the last question, but that's fine. But I asked, what social media platform is your MVP?
LinkedIn.
And so you can answer it personally, like what's your go-to platform, but then also from an Eagles point of view, from your role, from a revenue and sponsorship point of view, what's the go-to platform that you're using with the Eagles and partners?
Yep, I think from a monetizable standpoint, Facebook and Instagram have been the best platforms just to really target the audiences. So we have that ability. I think the biggest growth area from a following has been TikTok. I mean, TikTok has absolutely exploded for the Eagles. I'm still trying to figure out how to monetize that. So TikTok's an interesting one. It intrigues me. I'm just not sure on the monetization side yet. And then you said personally?
It's going to be interesting to see. If Instagram can copy it and stomp it out like it did to a certain degree Snapchat. So it's a bit of a wait and see. But I think you're not alone in trying to figure out how to monetize TikTok unless you're an influencer that has millions of followers. I think sports is still figuring out as a content platform and then a way for it to monetize. And for you, what's your go-to? What's your MVP social media platform?
Probably Instagram. I just like the visuals. I enjoy that. Instagram is probably my go-to from personal.
Terrific. Well, Catherine, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate the time. How can people who have listened to this podcast connect and network with you? What are the best places to find you on the internet?
Yep, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the best way to contact me. I always try and respond to most people that reach out and grow our network. That's what it's all about, right? Network. So that is the best way to catch me.
Definitely. Catherine, Carlson, thank you very much. I will put the links to your LinkedIn in the show notes. Please send a message. Say, Catherine, I listened to the podcast. I really enjoyed it. I loved this point that you made. And then insert the point there. It's not homework. It's networking. Thank you very much. I look forward to potentially being in your city again and maybe catching an Eagles game sometime in the future when they let me travel again.
Well, you would be very welcome, and I'll take you tailgating. How's that?
Terrific.
Learn from the Sports Geek Amplify Season 1 cohort. Timo, Vlast, Stellar Algo, Ubi Park, and Zoof. For more, go to sportsgeekamplify.com.
Thanks again to Catherine Carlson. You can reach out to her, send her a message on Twitter. She is Aussie Cath on Twitter. And also, please connect with her on LinkedIn. Big proponent of LinkedIn. Please let her know that you listened to the episode. Again, it's great when I hear from the Sports Geek podcast alumni that they are getting reached out to and getting kudos from you, the podcast listening audience. So please reach out to Catherine and say good day. And really do appreciate it. Before I wrap up, as always, to reach and connect with me, you can do so by multiple means. But really what I want to do is work on big problems and help you solve some of those big problems. So that normally starts with a phone call. So go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call, book in, let's have a chat. Let's figure out how I can help you or maybe how I can connect you with the right people or the right tools to solve that problem. Before I wrap up, all of the key links, all of the destinations that you want from me are at sportsgeekhq.com. From there, you can book in a time to chat. From there, you can link to and check out the Sports Geek Amplify series, which is also available at sportsgeekamplify.com. Really do appreciate all the feedback we've had for the first season of Sports Geek Amplify. Big shout out to the season 1 cohort, Vlast, Timo, Stellarago, Ubi Park, Zoomph. Please check out their episodes and what they've been doing the last 12 months to help sports business get back on its feet. I really am a big believer in how sports tech can help sports business bounce back, and the 5 companies in the Sports Geek Amplify cohort can definitely help in that regard. So please check out the episodes and please give me some feedback on that as a series. We're currently in pre-production for season 2. If you're a sports technology solution that you think can help sports bounce back, please reach out to me. I'd love to discuss how we can help both amplify your message, but then also help sports overall. Hope to see you on the next Sports Biz Zoom call. Please register for that. And for the Patreon subscribers, which I have not shouted out right now, thank you very much for being a Patreon subscriber. You too can be a Patreon subscriber by going to sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon. Until next episode, which will be episode 300, mind you. My name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
We'd love your support on our Patreon campaign. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon. Have you listened to the Sports Geek Amplify series? Go to sportsgeekamplify.com to listen.